Hello and welcome back to Rooted, the Art Arbor podcast. I am your host and moderator, Jake Vanderhayden, joined today by the full Art Arbor crew. We are excited to welcome on our guest today, one of our very own, Tim Grieme, and also are going to be talking about some developments that we've had going on here at Art Arbor. So without further ado, I will let Tim introduce himself in case you've never listened to the pod before. Just want to make sure we all know Tim and what he's been up to, what he has done, and where he's going. So, Tim, take it away.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Tim, just like Jake mentioned. You may or may not have heard my voice before, seen me on the podcast. But my name's Tim. Went to school with these guys back in Grand Rapids at Grand Valley State University, where we all met. And now I live in Nashville, Tennessee, as a performing musician, educator, and all of that kind of stuff. A little bit about me, just kind of background-wise, is that, I grew up in the state of Michigan. I was born in South Korea, but moved to Michigan, and that's where I grew up. I grew up on the Detroit side of Michigan, about 20 minutes north of the city, was in band and all that kind of stuff. Loved playing the saxophone and ended up going to school for it. So again, went to Grand Valley State with these guys, played in the Blue jazz ensemble with them, among many other things. Had a great time. Did my master's degree at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Got my degree in jazz and improvisation there. And about a year ago, moved to Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here about a year, and it's been a great time so far. A little bit about what I do, I guess. I perform. I'm in a couple different groups. I'm in a jazz group called Triple Dare. You can find us on Instagram at tripledare.jazz. We're a jazz quintet. We play all around town, different hotels, bars, clubs, all of that kind of stuff. As well as I'm the tenor player for a group called the Funk Junkies, a kind of funk soul band, kind of geared toward trying to play some like corporate events, weddings, the likes of all that kind of stuff. You can look us up too on Instagram, funk_junkies, JUNKIES. I also, sub around town in various groups, wedding bands with some country singers, some pop singers, the likes of, and everything in between. As well as do a lot of teaching these days, especially with the start of the school year, just having kind of taken off and all of that. So, I have a small virtual studio online. It kind of changes depending week to week, month to month, but around 7 to 12 students. I think it's around 11 right now. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it a lot teaching, students from anywhere from like middle school all the way through high school and whatnot. And I even have an adult who's been, playing trombone for the past 30 years and is just trying to wrap his head and hands around the saxophone as well. Teach at a local high school as well, Hume Fogg Magnet High School. I'm a guest clinician there. Go in once a week, work with the saxophones on either band repertoire or right now we're working on some chamber ensemble. So, for example, with the wind ensemble, I guess it's a quintet technically, but we're playing the saxophone quartet piece "Polar Vortex" by Chris Evans Haas. I guess what else?
Your biggest news of all.
My biggest news of all is lately I've accepted a position as an adjunct professor of saxophone at Alabama A&M University. It's been a lot of fun so far. Go Bulldogs or something like that. It's been a lot of fun. I have about 7 undergraduate students that I teach there right now. Fortunately, all music majors, so a lot of fun to work with. That's a little bit about me and what I've been up to lately. I'll pass it back to you guys and feel free to take it wherever we want to go next.
Live fact check, Alabama A&M is the Bulldogs. So
hey, there we go. Glad I got that one right. Glad I got that right.
We on Rooted, we like to live fact check everything. So trust your sources. So yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, in the past, and then we actually had a podcast probably, almost a year ago now. I'm thinking we've been re-releasing some podcasts, and I just thought about how long it's been. The reason we're re-releasing is because our Substack, we had to kind of get everything on there and get everything on all the platforms and all that. So we've been doing that recently, as well as cooking up some new ones here. But yeah, I know that we've talked, kind of when you got to Nashville, what you were doing when you got started, and then kind of throughout all that, you provided some context about, where you went since then, the latest developments, and it just takes some time, some water, some sunlight, all the good things for growth, right?
Absolutely.
I grow in Arbor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you just wanted to, before we dive into the Arbor stuff that we are really excited to talk about, wanted to make sure that we do talk about some things that you're working on. So, besides what you've already shared, is there anything coming soon? What are you cooking up? What's coming? What's the latest for Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot. I guess that's a lot of what's going on right now. Really, my main focus is kind of taking the things that I'm doing and really just going all in on them and trying to take them as far as they'll go. I guess I can't say too much in terms of the academic side, but yeah, I'm just trying to make myself as valuable as I can to the university, doing my part to be on time to things, to be a professional individual in terms of my relationships with students, but also relationships with colleagues and department chairs and the likes of. Yeah, there's not really a jazz degree offered, or I should say there is not a jazz degree offered at AAMU. But that is where my master's degree is specialized in, is jazz and improvisation, like I mentioned. So, just kind of keeping my eyes, locked on the future, as well as trying to keep an open mind myself, as well as maybe trying to open some other people's minds and see if there's anything we can do in that regard. On the playing side, yeah, I am the main, or one of the main, saxophonists in both the groups that I mentioned. The Triple Dare Jazz group, I am the only saxophonist and trumpet player. We're the horn line, and then in the Funk Junkies group, we have a full 4-piece horn line: trombone, trumpet, alto, and then I'm tenor player. So it's interesting. These are both ensembles that have kind of just started out in Nashville. And even to be honest, even when I joined In the Blue with you guys way back in the day at Graham Valley, that was a ball that was kind of already rolling, and I just kind of jumped on it and tried my best to help continue that momentum. So it's been a really interesting experience for me being a part of not just one, but two groups that are, going after two different things, two different avenues of music. Getting to be a part of that from the very, ground zero, if you will. It's been really interesting. And it's no secret that Nashville is a town with a lot of musicians, right? There's obviously competition. So balancing, how can we, in both groups, balancing, where do we try to get into something that's already existing, into an already existing rotation lineup, part of an arsenal of music groups that a booking agent might book for, etc. And where do we do the opposite and kind of make our own? Where do we find venues, make our own gigs, so to speak, as we always say. So yeah, just some things like that. So I guess really on the playing front, my main focus is with those two groups right now. Always open to joining more and all that kind of stuff. But I think hopefully that answers the question. But yeah, that's kind of where a lot of my focus is laying right now. And I guess I've done both. I've been very fortunate, partially within the Blue as well as during my time in Ann Arbor of really being a band leader. I've had my fair share of being the guy who is emailing or on the phone with brides and grooms for an upcoming wedding, or I've been the guy filling out the band and talking with the coffee shop owner and, what's the series going to look like? How long is it going to run? All of those kinds of things. How can we get more bodies in the door? So yeah, again, I've had my fair share of getting the opportunity to be that band leader. And I feel very fortunate that right now, my focus has kind of been to actually kind of not be that band leader. I think there are lots of advantages to being the band leader, and I love the creative freedom that you have with that. And there are so many other benefits or perks or whatever you want to call it, right? It's your creative vision, and you get to really allow that to flourish within a group in any way that you wish. And on the other side, I've really enjoyed trying to make a life for myself right now where I don't have to be that guy. I'm always more than happy to, and I know that there's a necessity at times, and I'm completely open-minded that if I ever want to, or if I ever feel the need to be that band leader, I totally can, or the sole only band leader. I totally can. But for now, again, there's a million musicians in Nashville, so if I can save myself an extra couple hours of work every week, might as well. I may not always get the fattest check at the end of the night. Maybe someone else gets one a little bigger, but that's okay. Pros and cons. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing that you've done is kind of continually diversified, like where your, projects lie, because you're doing stuff with various age levels. You're in a performing and a teaching capacity. And I think, you've kind of wanted to maintain that balance, where, some people go fully into teaching and they stop performing, or, for the lucky ones, in some cases, people that dig that, they go completely into performing. They don't teach at all, both of those. And that's definitely, I think, a strategy to get yourself out there, because that leads to other opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've always been kind of like you said. I've always been a person who's been a versatile, both I think player and a little bit teacher, as best that I, as best that I can. Some versatility in both of my sides of my musical being, the educator in me and the performer in me. And yeah, I completely agree with what you just said, Jake. I think that there are people who either out of necessity or out of desire end up focusing on one or the other. Or if we even go down either of those avenues, I think even more specifically, people tend to specialize in their genre of playing, right? Saxophonists are, I feel, especially notorious for saying, I'm going to be in one camp or another. I am going to play classical saxophone music and that is it. Or I am going to play jazz music and that is it. And you know what? At some time in my life, I may choose to make that same decision, or my career may naturally take my musical being in one of those directions. Frankly, have I played and gotten paid to perform that much classical music? No, I haven't. So in some ways, I suppose it's already started to naturally happen a little bit. But yeah, I mean, really, at least in my own mental identity or whatever, if you will, I generally consider myself more just a saxophonist, not beholden to a genre or anything else. In some ways, much like my friend Andrew here, just kind of a little bit of a nerd about this little chunk of metal. And yeah, I really just love playing. So I think that's where a lot of that versatility has come from. Not necessarily something I made a conscious decision when I was 18 years old that I'm going to, try to be the most versatile player that I can. And I'm all, if anything, it was just purely like a little bit of ignorant interest of like, wow, I just kind of like both and I see the benefits of both. So I'm just going to play both as long as I can. Again, I've kind of chosen, or it's naturally happened that I play more jazz, secular, or whatever the word is, pop music or whatever, commercial. That's the word I'm looking for. Jazz, commercial music. But, at the end of the day, I think, just kind of a saxophone nerd over here. So,
nice.
So, kind of going off of that versatility and all that, obviously there's always growth and evolution and things. So we're not, saying that, hey, at this point in your career that everything yet. None of us do, right? And none of it, I never think we will. But you're further along the road than others are, of course. And it's not to say that a certain age group is the only people that are at the beginning of the road. Colonel Sanders started KFC in his 60s, right? So, but what would you say to someone that is, like you said, like that is 18 and they're like trying to weigh their options and they're like you and they say, I really like playing the saxophone and I want to do something with this, but I'm not quite sure what I want to do with it. What would you tell yourself or someone at that age, given where you're at now?
I would tell someone of that age or my prior self, I would tell that, man, it's hard. I feel like I just hear the voices of all my previous teachers in my ear right now. And so in that world, in my gut reaction, like first thing that I would probably say is that, okay, you love it. Well, just like I was told when I was your age, it's not always going to be enough just to love it, right? It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's great to love it. But there's a lot of people that love it. You have to not just love the instrument, you have to also love the work a little bit. You have to love the process of getting better, the process of getting to the end goal. Because as musicians, we're never really probably going to get there. But anyway, I also, man, it's tough. I've also heard the advice from, I believe it's Randy Napoleon, the guitar professor at Michigan State University. I believe his first piece of advice when a student comes to him and says, I want to do this, I love this. His first thing is always, well, if you can envision yourself doing anything other than this, go do that. Do I think that everyone needs to take it that like black and white? Not necessarily, but again, I think it just kind of plays into what I said earlier of it's not always enough just to love it. We have to really, it's just going to be hard at times. It's going to be hard. In my own, if I were to take, not necessarily my teacher's advice, my own advice would probably be, it's going to be hard and strap in. But if you're willing to work hard, there is some really fulfilling experiences that can come out of it if you're willing to put in that work. I think a lot of musicians sit around and wait for the gig to come to them. And I've done that too, right? I think we all have. But yeah, I think it's an incredibly, I don't know. It's a classic musician mindset of I've gotten good at my instrument and now the gig's going to come to me. And now I'm going to sit here and twiddle my thumbs and wait for it. So what I would also tell to a young player who is starting to fall in love with this thing we call music would be that, yeah, you're gonna have to work for it if you really want it to happen. But if you're willing to put in that really actually hard work, then yeah, again, there's just some potentially really fulfilling experiences that you can have coming out of it. But yeah, don't expect you're going to be rich out of it. That's for sure.
So going off a little bit deeper, if there's any like just in the last year, since you've had this whole experience of moving out of state, far away, don't know anything there, is there anything that like you would have done differently or maybe started doing sooner if you had this 2020 hindsight vision? Or do you feel like what you've done is kind of the natural progression of what needed to happen to get to where you are?
Okay, the insecure parts of myself would say, yes, I would go about it differently. I think, and if you asked me probably 6 to 8 months ago, my answer might have been different. But yeah, so that side of me would probably say, yeah, I would have done some things differently. I would wait to save up a little bit more money before I move. I would try and do a little bit more networking with the people in Nashville before I actually moved here. I may have chosen to, I don't know, just some things like that. In other regards, or through a different lens, I don't know if I would have done anything differently, or I don't know if it really was that possible to do that much differently. The money side, sure, we can always save a little bit more money. But the other side of it is we're human beings. We're always going to feel that we need more money, right? That is just human tendency. I don't know if even Jeff Bezos sits there or Elon Musk sits there and says, yeah, I have enough money. I'm good. I'm done. Right? I don't think that we probably, I guess that's more a mindset thing. But yeah, so I mean, in some ways, I'm an impatient person, and that's why I want to say that I would do things differently. The impatient part of me that wants it to happen now, the part of me that says, oh, and it's partially just out of confidence in my own ability of like, oh, I'm going to move there, and in 3 months, I got my first gig. So now theoretically, I should just be able to get 25 gigs a month, and that should be no problem. But that's not realistically how it works. It's relationships that are built over time, networking with people, getting to know the scene, getting to know the community in terms of an audience perspective. What are people into? What are people not into? What kinds of personalities are people into? How do you be a good hang in a new area where you don't know the people? I mean, obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that the culture on a personal level is much different in Nashville, Tennessee than in Ann Arbor, Michigan, right? Everyone knows this. So how do you navigate that? Just all of those kinds of things. So in more direct answer to your question, would I have done some things differently? Sure, of course. A year later, a year and a month later, there are some things that I would edit and probably do a little bit differently going back. But at the same time, I think some of it just takes time, and I've put a lot of hard work and hours into meeting people, networking, doing all the things, calling schools and universities in order to try and get some kind of teaching gig, blah, blah, blah. I've done a lot of that kind of stuff. So in other ways, it's kind of like, okay, I've controlled, not all, by no means have I controlled all of the things that I can control, but I've controlled, I like to think a good amount of them. So I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question. Yes, I would do some things differently, but I also think I did some of them kind of well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that you just went for it, and you did the basic like things anyone would do to make sure that you were ready for it. But that's an important move, I think, when you're going into the unknown like that, is that there is a lot of unknown and that you just have to go for it. And, everything will settle itself out, and I mean, to your point, like waiting for something to come to you, if you just move to another state and you expect something to come to you, like it's not, but even if you don't go anywhere, it's not either. The only reason that you ever have anything is really because of community and networking and relationships with others. That's really how things come to us and how we attract things, our individual value back into the scene. And what you attract in, will pull more abundance to you. So I think, you've been, putting in that work, like you said earlier, you have to love the work. And I think that seems that you've loved the work there, and that's what's gotten you to where you are. And that's all that you really can do. Obviously the question's not a gotcha question. I think everyone could say that they would do something different, like maybe I would have started my day and done something differently today too. But like, hey,
I would have. That's for sure. I definitely would start today over again.
You're always in the present
moment. Yeah.
But yeah, love the work, I think is the motto of the episode, brought to you by Tim Grieme.
Love thy work.
I think that's a good segue into some of the Art Arbor stuff, so I'll pass it on to either of the other gentlemen here to introduce, reintroduce, or more dive
reintroduce.
Reintroduce and dive into our new latest development.
So we have, as mentioned previously, something that we've been testing, iterating, optimizing ourselves, is this assessment that we've created for artists. It is called the Modern Artist Optimization Index. And it's really meant to fill a void. We saw that no one really had something like this for the modern creative or artist. And so we created this, and it really measures all facets of one's brand business, from a creative and more administrative level. And so for those feeling kind of like stuck, or you don't really know the full picture of what it is to have a brand, a business as an artist or a creative, this index allows you to get a better picture of what's going on. Tim took this, and of the 30 questions and of the 3 different sections that it's broken down into, I think he did quite well. So in the first chunk, there's 10 questions that are over like the business administrative things like accounting or entity structure, legal, those kinds of things. And he did great. He got looks like a 70% or 7 out of 10 on those. He's touching on. Don't worry, we'll get into all of these in a second, but I wanted to go over Tim's score here. And we're on the next section, sales and marketing. He's got a is my screen sharing here? Sorry.
There we go.
There we go. Technical difficulties. This is the first chunk right here. Some of his responses for those on video here. And on the second part, we have sales and marketing. Here, he got a 50%. Still good.
Well,
still a great score.
The scores aren't necessarily a whamp. It's we say that 100% score would be fully optimizing, but we'll kind of get into as Tim debriefs on this. But the scoring on here is just meant to say what are the things that you could do in these pillars that
strengths and weaknesses. I wouldn't give it like a pass or fail. There's no pass or fail here, for sure. And then the last part, he got a really nice percentage, 80% coverage here on the personal branding side of things. And so still a rock solid score and covering a lot of bases here. I think, the next thing I want to do is kind of go through some of the things that have really worked for you that are covered here, some maybe hacks or things save people the scar of having to go through it themselves. If you can give some, nuggets here.
Once I was in school, when I was in school in my master's degree, I was like, okay, I should probably look at forming an LLC here soon, some kind of business entity, right? Legally speaking. However, I was in school with not a ton of gigs, so it didn't feel like this was like I need this now. It's a like dire emergency situation. I started putting it off, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to move out of state. So I'm just going to wait until I move out of state and form it in the new state I live. So that's what I did. I formed my LLC here in Tennessee. Low-key, it would have been cheaper if I did it in Michigan. But I formed my LLC here in Tennessee. Let's see, financial modeling, I don't have anything fancy in this regard. I don't sell a lot of products necessarily. It's a little bit more of like what I have an organization system of I just kind of know what I charge for lessons or my general like performing rate, those kinds of things. Let's
Do you
see.
take that just like off the market rate there, or are you
where's it
factoring
come
in
from?
some other things?
Yeah, I guess so. What do? I kind of go off of the market rate, to be honest. I've learned over time that I have a tendency to undersell myself, so I've had to bring up my rate a little bit to stay competitive. I feel within the, you don't want to be that guy who's just undercutting the market all the time. So I can't sit here, as much as I'd love to offer $25 for my lessons to students. I feel the need to charge a little bit more with that secondary degree kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, I base mine largely off of just kind of going market rates, what I know peers, colleagues, and all of that kind of thing charge. Let's see, legal. Yeah, I mean, if I choose to kind of, like I mentioned earlier, I choose to try and not be the band leader when I can. When I have been, contracts are certainly a thing that I've given to clients and all of that kind of stuff. I am a registered ASCAP composer and publisher, so I have some music that's like copyrighted through there. AI and tech implementation, to be honest, nothing crazy, but if there's anywhere, or if I have business questions, like, can I write this thing off or not? Or I use like AI a lot, honestly, designing my website of like, oh, what are some hex codes of colors that give this kind of vibe or feeling that I'm looking for when someone comes onto my website.
Nice.
Working systems, I use like I can remember how to pronounce it. Calendly or Calendarly.
That's why I say Calendarly.
Calendarly. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we got two different.
Oh, we're gonna live fact check this.
All right.
Okay. Stand by.
It's Calendly.
There's no R, so Calendly.
You
Okay.
got it the first time.
Yeah, they're right.
Okay, we got it. So yeah, I use Calendly for like booking lessons. If I ever have I should say that I do a lot of my teaching through various organizations, whether it's a university, an after-school program, or an online platform, kind of thing. But if I do have a student come to me, what's the word? Organically, just to me, the person, then I use like something like Calendly to book that. And then tax write-offs or tax strategy. I separate some of that via my LLC versus myself. I'm always writing off things, expensing things, all of that stuff. Shout out to Mr. Jake Vanderhayden for helping me out with some of that. I know there are a couple things that checked in here. To be quite honest with you, some of it is out of just pure feeling like it's not a necessity at a given time. However, I'm always open to implementing things down the road, or if I do feel that necessity. And the other side, I will be completely honest, is just complete like procrastination, being a human being and not prioritizing it. For example, accounting and like the bookkeeping side of things, I do this via
Plus good.
Google Sheets and like Excel spreadsheets. I'm a total like boomer in this regard, and that like I just have like all of my gigs that I've played. Here's how much I've made. Here are my tips. Here are all the money that I've made from students. Here are all the money that I've made from X, Y, and Z. Like all of I just do it like manually still, to be honest. So my next step is definitely implementing it with QuickBooks. I actually have an email for a 15-minute consultation of someone here in Nashville that I was going to work with to do this. And you can see the degree of my procrastination is I even have a sticky note right here on my computer. It says Music LLC QuickBooks. So some of it is purely just,
what's holding you back?
Laziness, probably.
Are you afraid to do it? Is something about accounting and bookkeeping just like detesting for you, or
Maybe a little. I guess my dad was an accountant, so maybe there's a little bit of that rebellious, like, well, I'm not going to do it because my dad would want me to do it kind of thing. No, not really. I feel like it's honestly just procrastination. Um, if I'm going to be honest, there's not really anything holding me back from it other than I just haven't made specific time to do it. So yeah, like I said, I literally have like a consultation sitting in my inbox that all I'd have to do is sign up for a time. I should probably do that. But
it's one of those things where as you grow and expand, in your entity, because, we have it on here, a lot of musicians or artists alike tend to work on a 1099 basis if they're being hired for a service. At least it's a little bit different when you're selling a product. You really should have an entity if you're ever selling a product, but that's one thing. But
right.
When you're working as a contractor, for those who don't know what a 1099 is, basically if you make more than $600 off of another organization throughout the year or for yourself, you're required by the IRS to collect these Form 1099 documents, and that all gets filed into your income for the year. And then, that is one reason to have a legal entity is to, separate things from yourself so that you're not putting all of your income tied to your personal income until it really is your income. It depends on your legal structure, of course. If you're more in a sole proprietor or single member LLC or something like that, it's sort of still blended, but you have some legal protection from having structure. Like let's say you're on a gig and, someone trips over your stuff, they could sue you for it, even though they're the one that tripped over your stuff. Then the LLC will get sued for it. So there's, basic liability there, but there's some advantages for sure of filing as a business. And of course, this is not financial advice. Please consult a tax accountant or legal services. Some boilerplate thing we need in there, but
yeah.
In general, having those types of protections are necessary in a business. You're just going out in the world. It's like you're not going to drive your car without insurance. At least I hope you're not. You're not protected. You need to protect yourself in doing business, because when you work at what I would call a W-2 job, which is like I work at a factory, I work at McDonald's, work at Amazon, wherever you work, any job, right? You have all that legal protection and structure of your employer that's protecting you from anything that can happen. You could be sued for literally whatever, harassing somebody. There's all sorts of things that can happen to you. So if you're working for yourself, you're having some kind of entity protecting you when you're out conducting business in the world, because otherwise they can come after you for everything you have. Otherwise they can just come after the business. So that's the one thing. But in relation to, the tax benefits that you unlock by having a business, which is where when you're working for someone else, the tax is already being taken right out of your income. Where if you're a business, you're taxed on your net profit, basically. So your income minus your expenses basically gets, right? But when you have a business in place, you can also, within the law, manage those expenses so that you control what you're being taxed on. And there's, within the scope of the tax code, a lot of things that you can benefit from. It's a real hack of having a business. Then, tying into that, there's different ways to do it. But if you have a formal accounting system, bookkeeping system, it's just a lot easier. You don't have to log everything. There's a lot of tech integration, like you can connect your credit card right into QuickBooks. You can have your tax accountant tie right into QuickBooks, be able to access all your data and reports. It keeps everything in what they call a general ledger, which is going to categorize all your expenses into things. And these are the basis of how you could do analysis, or you could do in the future, by having everything organized in a system so that you have an understanding and a log that in a systematic way of keeping track of all these things. And also at the end of the year, it really simplifies everything for your tax preparation, that you have basic financial statements, a position of cash for yourself. That's a good one to be able to tie all if you have multiple accounts or things together. There's the concept called a balance sheet that shows your assets, which are the things you have, which is probably just your bank account as a small business. and then your liabilities, which is likely just a credit card or a line of credit or something that you're using to make, payments for your business. And then the equity is whatever's left, and that's what you're going to be drawing from to pay yourself. That basic statement you don't have to do much with it, but it is good to know what your position is, because those things all balance out, to know, and some insights into, how much debt you have, or maybe you don't have any debt and all your earnings are going into your equity. Just some basic understanding of your business's structure, as well as, the income statement or the profit and loss statement that would be generated by a system like that, so that you can have an understanding of what your profit is. I think most people don't know what their margins are, and they don't know what their expenses are. And frankly, they probably don't know what their sales are. Like, if I asked him, I won't put him on the spot, but without consulting, something, do you know what your margins are and profit is right now from your spreadsheet?
Not off the top of my head.
And I think a lot of people, they just kind of react to things as they happen, and there's not, the accounting is you're kind of in the present, or you're looking back. And then, finance would be more where you're predicting the future, I would say, for the most part. There's definitely some financial analysis that you can do in all periods of time. But the basic understanding is, where are you at right now? It's like stepping on the scale. Like, hey, am I profitable, or am I not profitable? And then from there, that's the basis of how you can start to plan to be more profitable, in analyzing those different basics. Like, am I charging enough for my services? Do I have enough services going? That'd be like price, volume, that type of thing. Or, otherwise the expense side, are your expenses being managed within the capacity that you have from your sales? So that would be, the reason to consider implementing those things, is to make sure that you're actually profitable from what you are doing across, especially, if you're doing a lot of other things in your, like Tim, you mentioned you're very versatile and working all these different jobs. You got to make sure across the whole portfolio that all those things are contributing towards you putting some bread on the table at the end of the day, right? And, we measure that maybe in terms of, our bank account, or, us being able to pay our bills, but it's really important to understand how the business is performing, so that you can plan for the future on the things that you want to do to take those next steps. And, it's not free to have QuickBooks, and it takes time, but you have to love the work.
This is the work, baby.
Absolutely. And likely on a more serious note, I feel like that versatility, or at one point lack thereof, is part of the reason that I have never gone through with it. Was when all of my gigs, or I should say when 98% of my gigs came from one place that is in the blue, then, I just felt a little less, I don't know, it's just easier to track. I never had a problem with like writing it all in a spreadsheet, but literally the other day, I was like, okay, now it's coming.
Yeah. There's a top, probably, like, honestly, I don't want to get too exact, but there's definitely a moment when your books get to be where you just have to move into a software. Like, unless you're a freak in the sheets, Excel spreadsheets, you're not going to be able to keep up. It just gets too much. It becomes way too much.
No, and I'd say it doesn't like there's definitely like opportunity too from a system to download that data, put it into a spreadsheet, keep track of it yourself, do some analysis on it. Like, as a financial professional, I'm going in and out of a system and into Excel constantly. It's definitely not to say that it replaces spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are my life. I would say.
No, I'm just talking about from you're getting into something I think is a little more advanced than what I'm getting into.
Exactly. I know. I understand what you're saying, but it's just to say that, as far as to actually have a source of truth, that you have a system implemented that's proven, especially, I would say if you have an accounting background that you could not utilize a system like that. But a system like that is going to give you, especially with a lot of the updates that they've done, a lot of optimizations in AI to help you, make sure that you're actually optimizing everything that you're doing in your business.
They just had a huge AI update. I just watched their podcast they just dropped. They just AI-ified QuickBooks, everything is AI now. So they're really on top of it, making it easier to access it at a basic function for sure.
There's a lot of just basics in there too. Like they have a tool to track your mileage. They have an opportunity to upload your receipts. If you ever get audited for your business, you need to have all your receipts. You need to have all your documentation and proof that your expenses were for your business, what they were, when they were, that they were incurred on your behalf, all those types of things. And, as you get, it's okay to not have these. That's why we call this optimization. It's not, this isn't artist requirements, right? Like you can get by without these things, but maybe like Tim said, your first couple of years, like, hey, I'm just a 1099. I'm in this group. It's basically just the same as having a job. I'm just getting a check. But once it starts getting more complicated and you're in business for 5 or 10 years and you need to go back and look at something, that's a lot of records and a lot of receipts and a lot of things to go through without having some kind of
You said it, source of truth.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Man, I think that was great. There's the next chunk here on the sales and marketing side. I have to be frank with you. This was a lot of this was pretty mixed for you, whether you've dabbled in all of these facets of the sales and marketing. So tell us what are some things that you found to be successful in the sales and marketing area category here, and maybe some hacks or nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, certainly. So, as you can see, I have a couple. This is I believe this is my weakest category, to be honest. So the ones that I selected that I do have, something going, at least is some consistent and strategic social media posting. Again, I'm not necessarily super deep into that person who's posting once a day or more.
5 times a day.
But I certainly do my best, or try to do my best, that if I'm playing something, I will at least post a story that I'm playing it, or I'll say, hey, I know a lot of musicians wait till the day of, so I try to be a little better at least and say, hey, 2 or 3 days before I'm playing the gig, hey, I'm playing a gig in 2 or 3 days.
Takes an average of 3 touch points to get someone to at least recognize the thing that you're doing. So
there we go, 3 touch points. Okay, I probably get 2 50% of the time, but that's cool. That's something at least.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. There we go.
I feel like I get 1 probably 80-90% of the time. But anyway, okay. I do have a website. I built it through Wix. I looked into Squarespace as well. And just for the level of knowledge that I had at the time, accompanied with the requirements that I needed of the website, Wix seemed fine. I do have some long form content on YouTube. I have some. I have some different things. Some things that were captured live. For example, I think part of my senior recital at Grand Valley is on YouTube, I think. So, for example, that was just kind of captured off of not a phone, but just one single shot frame kind of thing, and 1 overhead microphone. So nothing crazy. But then I do also have the likes of some actual, and they're not necessarily I have not necessarily published them as an EP or an album on Spotify. It's not necessarily that far, but they are studio recordings that I recorded of some standards and an original tune or 2. I have something live that I performed, one of my own compositions at the Blue Llama in Ann Arbor. So just kind of a mix or hodgepodge of things. Not necessarily vlogs by any means. I haven't gone down that hole of long form content, but just actually the art itself. And then collaborations and partnerships with other artists. As a performing musician, that's kind of no brainer, happens all the time, whether it's artist to artist or artist to venue business kind of relationship.
Hey, or even this podcast. I mean, that's an example of a collaboration, bringing, like-minded business and artists together and, making a difference, and of course, every organization you're involved with, I'd say everyone probably has something, but it would be like leveraging those connections or, really putting yourself out there, like us launching Rooted here and making sure that we're getting our word out there. Because if it's not being put out into the world, it's the same concept of waiting for the gig. It's like we're waiting for someone to come to us. Like we have to put our thought into the world as our organization of Art Arbor so that we advance our mission forward and, thus you advancing your own mission as well.
Certainly. So yeah. I know there are some on here that I don't have selected. And I will say, but some of these are, to be honest, a bit more of a conscious decision than maybe some of the previous category. For example, like kind of like I mentioned earlier, honestly, is that I, again, am totally open and fine and at times enjoy being a band leader and being that role within a group. However, if I don't have to be, then hey, I'll take the extra couple hours in my day. So some things like a CRM implementation, customer relationship management. So like in the Blue, for example, for those who may be less familiar with this might mean. For example, in the Blue, when we get a booking or an inquiry for a booking, that all gets then sent through a program called Honeybook, where we can essentially, right, like CRM implies, we manage the relationship with the customer. So we can talk about things via a messaging system or email. We can send documents or links to things, as well as payments and kind of fully book the gig, essentially all in one spot. Again, I have chosen to do my best to create a life right now where I don't have to do this. So if I take off my artist hat for a sec and put on my Art Arbor hat, is that that's why we've named it an optimization index, right? Like Andy mentioned, rather than in modern artists requirement page, because it's not always required that we do all of things. The important thing is that we're considering it consciously, whether we do want to implement it or not. I feel at this current time, if I put the other hat back on now, I feel at this current time that a CRM for me to pay for clients that I'm hoping to outsource to some other band leader or something, it's just not a necessary step for me right now.
I think one thing that I can pull out of what you just said is that, when you were within the Blue and I was managing on your behalf as a 1099, this system, that there was a system in place. And that is one thing where now you go into another group, and maybe not saying anything about your groups, but just generic group, not specifically anyone that you're involved with, but you go into a group and they don't have these things in place and there is a band leader and you're not the person responsible. It's something that you could help yourself, help your group, be like, hey, in this other, project I was in, we implemented this technology, it has some AI in it, and it could help with the volume of things you're dealing with, just being a team player. In general, we outsource that work as a unit in the Blue Jazz Ensemble because, the volume of things that are going on became unmanageable. And there's really a lot of leverage when you add, technology where I can have an automatic reminder automation triggered at a certain phase that I've predetermined, where I don't have to remember to remind my clients about something. And it's just one way to help you grow because if you have to, put all these reminders in your phone and on your calendar and all these things on your to-do list, that's going to slow you down from creating your art. And, in your case, it's through the relationship of the group, we took that outsourcing, put it behind some technology and AI, and really leveraged the growth of not having to manage all that administration and also some of the different channel management as well, because you'll end up at a certain point when you grow, you'll have inquiries coming at you left and right from various platforms. You have social media coming in, you have your website, you have email, you have phone, you have a booking platform, you have a website that you're a contractor under, and you need to pull all those things into one house, see everything in a pipeline, see how things are progressing. Have I, followed up with them? Have I, followed up with them again? Have I started talking to them? Are they in negotiations? Do I have a contract with them? Have I followed up and sent them need to plan their event, plan out what I'm working with them on? And then that post relationship management, am I, getting a review from them? Am I, following up with them, in certain art or certain services? Am I following up with them again to make sure that I can get repeat business from them? And there's all sorts of things that a CRM can do, even, if you feel like at the current phase that you're in, either in the past where you were just a 1099, or even now you have all these different things going on, that you have the confidence that there are systems in place in the thing that you're working on. And that's why, as you mentioned, you made that conscious decision that this is not necessary for the role that I'm playing and what I'm doing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But and like building off of what you said, I also agree that it's always an ongoing analysis of the level of optimization, to be honest. So if there is a point where I do end up being a bit of a more band leader, then that would be certainly something that I would choose to implement more. Or for example, like what's another one? Let's see, like fan customer engagement, for example, or even product service distribution. It's not something that I've felt personally led to do at this moment, or when I've considered doing it, I don't necessarily feel that a t-shirt with my face on it is the thing that everyone would be like the catalyst to my success in terms of my career or like financial stability. Mm-hmm. At some point, sure, if I one day wake up and I have 20,000 followers, 50, 80,000 followers on Instagram, then okay, that's a total time to reevaluate that and say, okay, maybe I do want some of those things. But for now, I just feel it's again just been a personal choice to not do some of that. So
yeah, I had to hijack for a moment here because I have a challenge for you.
Yeah,
live here. What out of all these, and I have a little bit of my 2 cents on this, but what do you think would be, of the selected ones, the greatest ROI currently to invest in? We'll just theoretically say you're like, all right, let me invest in.
I guess even the ones that you do have checked, like if you could lean into one of those more.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I feel as though it would probably be. I feel that I've chosen intentionally to put a lot of my energy into the in-person kinds of things. So like collaborations and partnerships with other artists, businesses, or organizations, I think is one of the more important things on this list. However, I feel that I've done a lot of it, so I'm not going to use that as my answer. Instead, I would say, and I can't really decide between one or the other, and I feel that they serve a similar role. So I would say it would either be more consistent and strategic social media posting, or in a similar world, if I want to cough up a little, then I would say paid advertising. I think one of those two. I feel as though
I want to shed light. Digital community building, to me, is the most slept on here for you.
Yeah, I agree.
10 years from now, 5 years from now, are you still going to be teaching, yes or no?
Probably.
I would say this is a great opportunity then to build something where you can have that digital learning community.
That's fair. I will say that I did attempt to try to do, but it's not really in these worlds. So yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that absolutely.
I think what could be actionable off of that is what we talk about here is like the physical and digital blend. I think people like got spooked away from one or the other coming out of the pandemic. Like, I don't think we're all ready to throw the goggles on and go in the metaverse, right? So
no.
The digital community building, I think, is just a way to continuously build that sense of community that you have built in person. So leveraging those partnerships and collaborations and using technology as a medium to, because we're all busy, we all are on these things all day, to stay present with people and stay connected with people. I mean, really, Art Arbor itself is a digital community, that we've tried to build outside of the four of us. But even with the four of us, I think we've mentioned it plenty, different states operating as an organization here. And it all comes from the foundation of when we were all together physically and had that time to pull things. But there's a continuation of what's necessary, I think, by, how it used to work is you would go in separate directions and you'd never see each other again, except for, a wedding or a funeral or something. Right. But, a class reunion or a homecoming or, whatever forces people to bring together. But I think technology can really force us to come together to continue our work and continue our collaboration when we're not, in that physical space to make those connections happen.
No, it's honestly a great idea. And it gets me thinking, I would have to look into some of it because I'm not sure if I could ask for example, collegiate students, right? Or I can't necessarily ask like a 13-year-old at a high school that I teach to join my Discord server, unfortunately. However, theoretically, it would be really cool.
I would say Discord's not the best medium personally. I'd say in this case, I'm thinking more Patreon, Substack when I said when I said what I said, but you make a point. There's a level of like, sure, the 13-year-old now might not understand how the Substack works. Hence my emphasis on the long-term 5 and 10-year thinking that this is a slow build that could be basically like getting your audience off of those other managed platforms, if that makes sense digitally, like getting your followers from Instagram over to email to have more of a personal connection, not being so dependent on things like, oh, TikTok's banned. You know what I mean? Remember when that happened? So it's things like that. Whereas if you had your own Substack, you'd be able to kind of have more ownership over that digital or frigital community.
No, it's interesting. It's great stuff. I appreciate it. Definitely.
Or like contribute in a community. Like I will say, obviously, all of our part here in building the Art Arbor community, that's something that can influence thing for everyone. If you're listening out there and you're an artist, come on in because, we want to help you, but we want, what I was talking about earlier about how you can go in and out of the collective, like what value are you contributing back into something? I feel like if you always are expecting something and pulling, but you're never giving back, that you're really going to limit what comes back to you in the long run, because I think the greatest gift in life is what we can give and not what we receive, right? So think of that in a sense of community. If you feel like, same thing, like, Tim, you mentioned like, hey, I don't want to be the band leader and the driving force and the center of gravity of everything, right? But like, you can do the same thing with a community. You don't need to do that for a community. Anyone can contribute back out, on a subreddit or, on a Facebook group or, in a Discord server, like whatever makes the most sense to you to reach the other people in a community, go do that, or just go do it in person. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities to do that. We can't lose that. But I think, it's important to make sure that, you're staying in touch, even if you don't have a direct relationship, like subscribing to someone's Substack, or just, even if you're listening to this podcast, you're engaging with our community by listening to this podcast. So, these things interconnect.
Nice. Man, we just got one more last category here, the personal development strategies. And you did great on this one. You've definitely locked in on yourself. And what are some things that stood out here for you, and maybe some things that have really worked well? Hacks, nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's see. I think if I were to give like my biggest nuggets are, and I suppose in this world I could have selected the career coaching. I just tend to think of it differently, but like the mentor-teacher relationship, to be honest, I think especially in something that there is not necessarily a linear path for, such as if you were going to try to become a, dentist, there's a fairly linear path, right? If you don't have that one go-to mentor for that whole path, there is kind of a standard route to take, is my guess. I don't really know the ins and outs of dentistry, but that would be my general assumption. In the music world, it's not like that at all. I would never describe it as linear. I would never describe it as a clear-cut path either. So,
quite the opposite. It's a full jungle.
Yeah, quite
That's
the
a
opposite.
complete jungle.
Yeah. So because of that, I would say that mentor-teacher relationship can be so huge. And again, for us, like, kind of doubles as a bit of, or does double as some career coaching. I think my teachers I've just been very fortunate to study with some really great teachers and a lot of different kinds of teachers. And it's really just shaped not all of, but a lot of, I don't know, just how I view the musical world, and it's just undoubtedly influenced the choices that I've made. So I wouldn't be here without any of them, so thank you to all of you if you happen to be listening. But yeah, I think that would be one of my biggest nuggets, is find someone who has done what you want to do and see how they got there. Keep what you like. If there's anything that doesn't work for you, then that's fine. Everyone's different. But getting the information from someone who's already where you want to be can be really huge, right? Whether that's in music specifically, or I would believe any kind of artistry, or probably most career paths. Again, I feel it's a little more necessary in something that's not as linear, like music and art in general. But that being said, I think anyone can benefit from that kind of mentor or teacher. I know we've all had them, right? We've all taken some kind of music lesson, whether at a younger high school, middle school age, or right? Me and Andrew Peters here have literally shared one or two of the same mentors.
Yeah, I was gonna chime in, because it's kind of like, you've had different stops along the way, like most musicians, especially go down the academic route, tend to have, So okay, you start in high school. You started with, my dad, obviously. I don't know if you want to.
Right, my first mentor ever actually was Andrew's dad, Mr. Peters, and calling back to earlier, the advice of it's not enough just to love the music actually comes from him. So proof is in the pudding, right? I still use that all the way to today.
Right. Okay. So what about, would you consider Marcus Elliott? That's like an inside name that just like the two of us would.
Right. It's a great point though. I think for more context for those listening, when Andrew and I went to the same high school together, actually, and we were fortunate that in our jazz band class, growing up close to Detroit, our director pulled in some heavier musicians from the Detroit scene and would work with us on a regular basis. Some of the more prominent names being Marcus Elliott or Chris Johnson. I think the both of them stand out in my mind a lot as big mentors. I remember Chris Johnson actually specifically saying, and this lives in, honestly more toward the front of my brain, pretty regularly. Chris Johnson was a big believer in talking about our business entity, and all of the things that we're talking about is, I have Chris Johnson Music LLC, and I have Chris Johnson the person. And I like to think of myself as I work for Chris Johnson LLC. That is my day job. And the goal of that work is to get work for Chris Johnson the person. And then at night, I get to be Chris Johnson the person who goes out and plays music and stuff. And I think, again, did I necessarily spend an hour lesson with him every week for 3 years like I did Mr. Peters. Not necessarily, but I think it still just goes to show how if you can surround yourself with some people that you truly like look up to and aspire to want to be, I think that can take you so far. I remember in high school saying that way down the road, I would love to be like a Chris Johnson who teaches at a university, but also like is out in the real world playing. And that has like stuck in my head for a long time. And like, it kind of dawned on me the other day of like, oh shoot, you know what am I doing now? I'm teaching at a university and playing out in the real world. Like,
nice.
You know, so again, yeah, you surround yourself with those kinds of people and good things are bound to happen.
It's cool how so much of that can come full circle and just start from the roots. I mean, just like sitting in the band room at high school, you know, that we didn't really necessarily think all that much of at the time, but it's just how much of an effect those kind of people have on you. And then, okay, so going the collegiate route then, speaking of surrounding yourself with people that have, you know, like-minded interests or pursuits, I think I could speak for you that Dan Grazer, a saxophone professor at Grand Valley State University, was certainly a role model. If you want to speak on that,
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
pursuing a career on the side.
Yeah, I mean, career coaching, like, I mean, to be honest, like, and this is true of a lot of people. You know, Dr. Dan Grazer at Grand Valley. The people mentioned before, like Michael Drost, who we all worked with actually together at various points at Grand Valley. Some of my professors at Michigan, Andrew Bishop, Ellen Rowe, like so many of these people, like that. This is why it can be so valuable, because it's not like we just work on like playing the saxophone together, right? These people have like helped me with all of these facets of personal brand, to be honest, like I'm sorry, I can barely call him Dan Grazer. Like Dr. Grazer would talk all the time about like, right, personal branding and how we authentically represent ourselves within the music world and, you know, be a good vibe and a good hang while still being an utmost professional kind of thing. You know, would always talk about how are we going to push ourselves forward, as well as how are we going to push the instrument forward, being the saxophone? How are we going to push the boundaries of what is thought to be possible and capable at various levels on the instrument, all of those kinds of things. So again, I think my biggest nugget for someone out there who's maybe, I don't know, even at my stage or further along on this musical journey or artistic journey, right? Because we're all trying to do the same thing. There's room for all of us here, and we're all just coming at it from different points and trying to find our thing, right? I think if I could give one little nugget for anyone, would be to find someone, again, that you aspire to, want to be like, or is doing something that you think is cool, and you would love to take a little piece of that and like bookmark it and save it for yourself, because I promise you, of these 10 bullet points in this category, if you get with someone good, that they're going to touch on all of this, if not like more, you know. I think that these, our teachers are they're just gifts in our lives. They offer us so much. So I think if I gave one nugget from this category, it'd definitely be
absolutely. And I think, you know, collectively these like influences, the initiatives and whatnot ultimately lead to more or less, I don't know, the other bullet point that you didn't necessarily mark off, which is launch or relaunch planning, but to launch yourself out into the world one way or another, right? Something we kind of talked about briefly off the air was you almost kind of have relaunched yourself in a sense of, I don't know, location, if anything, just going to Nashville, starting something new there.
In some ways, like when I came, it's like that's when I chose to make my personal website. That's when I chose to make sure I was posting more consistently on Instagram, social media in general. That's when I chose to set up my LLC. So, okay, like, did I launch a specific project that is the Tim Grieme blah, 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 that I am now, you know, it's a very specific entity? No, not necessarily. But yeah, you're right. I did kind of like relaunch myself or whatever, like just moving here, or like, to be honest, as I was a student prior, whether undergraduate or or graduate student, like, in some ways it was like launching myself out of like the university, out of school, and like into like real life, regardless of whether that was here or in Michigan or wherever else. Some of that was just naturally with that time in my life. So yeah, no, certainly.
Oh, absolutely. And then almost on the almost like on a hypercritical side, in terms of launching, I mean, you're in multiple groups in Nashville right now. What does this make me think of? I was thinking about it earlier, just when we were talking about some of the other areas on the index and whatnot. Professionally, like launching yourself reminds me of remember Chris Norton, this trumpeter, band leader, singer that we worked with. He the Grand Valley hosts like this huge President's Ball kind of thing where just everyone comes, a huge dinner, huge reception and whatnot. And Chris Norton and his band would perform like in the midst of the like dinner, and then also play the like dance reception after. And he would always say, put on your everyone get a damn haircut, put on your suit and tie, record, take your 4 best tunes that you've been working on recently and go record them. Have either of your groups like considered going down that route at all? I know you have your own, maybe this is more on a group side versus personal development thing, but it's still in the realm.
Right. Certainly. Actually, it's really funny that you asked. My jazz group, Triple Dare. Shout out to Mr. Joe Ham out there. He's our kind of band leader. He got it moving real fast. And like the first time is really funny. I met all of the band at various jam sessions around town. And that's kind of how we put it together. But Joe and I met first, and we had not played together until our first rehearsal. At our first rehearsal, we said, we're going to record 4 songs, going to rehearse them real quick. And then we rehearsed them, and then we recorded them. He like edited them, mixed them a little bit, threw them up on a website, and it was like launched within like a week. So yeah, actually. And then on the other side, the less do-it-yourself route, my Funk Junkies group, or the Funk Junkies group that I'm in, actually like just a week and a half ago ish, we met at a studio downtown and did some recording, video and audio. So actually, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
so I guess to speak on it, I haven't necessarily launched myself in that kind of way, but with some groups, I've done a little bit more formally like that. So, yeah.
Nice. Guess you got to get down the social media side, right? Keyboard warrior.
Yeah, right. And honestly, one day it's been on my docket. It's been on my list of things to do, and because I know Andy's going to ask what's holding you back, probably some insecurity, along with some other things. But at some point, I would like to record like the likes of a Tim Grieme quartet album kind of thing, all original composition kind of thing. I don't know. I feel that it's just been something that I've always said that I'm going to do this one day. So one day I'm going to do it. So yeah. Don't ask me when it's going to be, though.
Okay.
Well, when you do, you can reference the Art Arbor launch kit. Find it on our Substack. It has the full playbook of what to do if you are even relaunching or launching this new project here. If you're out there listening and you haven't read it, go through. We have some great optimizations on that as well. But, this whole exercise here, I think, just really highlights, and makes you introspect into what you can do to optimize, or like I said, what you could, if you're involved in something, what you can have them do to optimize. Like if you're working for some guy, be like, hey, do you got insurance on this gig? Like, you break your neck on stage, like who's paying for that? So some of it's just keeping your house in order, optimizing around you as well. But, the personal development, I think, is last but not least. There's definitely a lot of work that can be done on yourself and on, all of this mindset and planning and intention and finding a mentor and balancing your life, managing everything, your productivity, all these things that you can do for yourself. I mean, if you just nail and optimize all of these, you can outsource everything else. I mean, you can hire me or Andy here as your bookkeeper.
Totally.
Shameless plug. Or hire somebody to do your ads for you. Or like, you don't, just because you're not checking all these boxes doesn't mean you have to do it. I mean, if you just personally develop, there's plenty of musicians that have completely developed themselves in their craft and really, found a niche of their art and gotten a, community out there, and then they had somebody do everything for them. So, it's just kind of like, digging into these different, areas of being a musician or an artist, I should say. And, like Tim said, loving, I think that there's some work that needs to be done somewhere in your ecosystem, so to speak. And it's where you put your intention and where you focus it to where I think you can leverage out of it. But if you're trying to look where to get started, I think you need to put some work into each of these buckets, because if you're just working yourself in a closet, no one's ever going to hear your music or see your art or experience your performance if you're in a vacuum. You have to build community, you have to network, you have to advertise, you have to have protection in a legal environment for yourself. You have to make money doing it to survive, right? Or maybe, you can just make art without doing all these things. That's joy.
It's also a possibility.
It's all, a lot of people, it's just a hobby, but if you want to be this modern artist and you want to optimize from a career standpoint, these are the kind of conversations that I hope that you're not just thinking about doing, or maybe I'll do it someday, or it'd be, find a way to either work on it yourself, outsource it to someone. If you can't afford to outsource it, maybe you need to bring it in-house. Another shameless plug coming. We've alluded to it already, various names going around, but our basically consulting service from our team here, we have recently finished up our Series 1 founding members. We had an NFT collection and also some founding members on our Substack. Big shout out to all of you that have supported us. We're going to be working with some artists to go through this index and have some conversations about where they're going and lead to some more things for them in the future. No matter where they are on their journey, that there's always some optimizations that can be made. But if you're listening to this, we're going to have this linked in our bio, right?
So the links are available on our Instagram, on our Substack, and also on our Facebook. The Facebook link is just a Google form link. Feel free to go to our Substack. It's a button right there. It says Modern Artist Optimization Index. Big button. Click it. It'll take you right to the forum.
Yeah, if you don't want to miss out on stuff like this, you can also be a free subscriber to our Substack. We will be sending this out just as a tool. And then if you like what you see, you gets you thinking as you're going through this index here, coming up with that score for yourself, doing that self-assessment. We'd love to do basically what we did here with Tim, except we won't necessarily broadcast it to the world. But we thank Tim for being vulnerable a little bit here and digging into himself, being introspective for all of you. But we wanted to demonstrate, some of these good conversations and thought processes that we've had that could lead to something for you. So definitely reach out to us. Best way would be our email, which is info@artarbor.community. And we've got that on all our pages. Or DM us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're on LinkedIn for the professionals out there. Follow us on LinkedIn. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Even, our main objective would basically be if you join our founding member, which is still available on our Substack, which is $50 right now. That would get you a lot of benefits for a lifetime. It's actually a forever subscription that we're going to give you. And Substack, sometimes it's monthly and as well. But if you join as a founding member, we'll give you an hour consultation with us. You'll get maybe not all four of us, depends on scheduling, but you'll get hopefully at least one or two of us will walk you through these things, and
you'll get the full experience.
Exactly. And we're going to also not claim to be experts in all this. Some of you are probably like, well, who are you guys telling me all this stuff? We have an extensive network that we have began to leverage, and we feel that on every one of these topics that we know someone that is an expert in that field, or multiple people, to be honest, especially I would say in the fields of our respective areas. On my side, I have many people in the business community, in the finance scene. Andrew P. and Tim, definitely in that higher education space, have a lot of connections there. Andy up here has a lot of connections in digital marketing and that growth mindset and all those things. So we're going to help you leverage our network in our community. We'd love to have you on as a founding member, join on our Substack, or reach out to us. And we're going to be hopefully getting some more community building going here through that action. I think it'd be insightful if you would consider joining us for a personalized session. And from there, even a long-term relationship, just as you need it. I mean, there's no commitment. We're just here to serve you and to have a conversation with you. So please consider joining as a founding member on our Substack. Definitely more to come, and a little sneak peek on the podcast. I mentioned we identified an individual that's a subject matter expert regarding these items in the index. We will be working in some of those folks onto the podcast, as we've already had some diversified group of guests here. We're going to continue to bring artists on as well. But we're going to hope to get some of those dual threats to artists that
absolutely
have subject matter expertise as well. So lots of good things coming on Rooted. We're not slowing down. We're just speeding up here.
Just getting started.
Yeah, we are just getting started, people.
But biggest takeaway from this is we're waiting for the Tim G shirts with his face on it, right?
Yeah, that's really it.
Takeaway.
Yeah. We're going to do a 1-year check-in. If I can buy one of those shirts.
You better have a shirt by then, bro. I swear to God. I'll be wearing it on the pod. I'll have that shirt on.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I want to say, the Modern Artist Optimization Index that we've created is essentially a roadmap to wherever you want to go. As an artist, as a creative, it gives you an assessment of where you are functionally in each of these categories. Each of these bullet points have a 1 to 10 scale of optimization, even itself. That's why meeting with us is a way to go to that, even that next step that most people won't take to go to that next level. So I highly encourage anyone considering understanding, wanting to move up to that, feeling stuck, wanting to get unstuck, wanting to move up, grow. This index is the first place to start.
No matter where you are on your journey, we'll meet you there. Even if you think you're pretty optimized, I'll find something.
Oh, there's something.
But
perfect.
Yeah, just wanted to thank, especially in particular, Tim Grieme for joining us today. We're gonna link up all of his stuff so you can follow along with what he's doing and support what he's doing. If you're in Nashville, definitely got to come check out a gig. If you're a saxophone player or the like, get a lesson with him. Or if you're a Alabama A&M Bulldog, you can enroll there as well, get a lesson there. But it has been an honor and pleasure to have you all here. Signing off of this episode of Rooted, the Art Arbor podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our Substack, follow along, and we will see you soon to talk about your AOI Artist Optimization Index. Bye-bye.
Till next time.